What is happening, guys? Welcome back to the library. This is Mr. Collier. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and give you some tips on this sci-fi research project that you got going on. I wanted to point out a couple of places where you can get some information and some strategies to help you narrow down your search to find specifically what you're after in regards to these movies and the themes that you're exploring. I sent you guys a link to the Research Pathfinder, and you're welcome to use that directly. I'm going to go by my usual way through library.marist.com, and we're going to click on the blue library link here in the middle. Everything that I'm going to show you right now is already open in my tabs across the top here, so don't get confused that I'm not actually clicking the links. We are going to go to the library portal here. And I'm going to take us straight to the Pathfinder itself. It's down the screen a little bit here. Right now, the third one down, it might move around a little bit as we put other Pathfinders up. But it says Science Fiction Research. I've already got it open up here. I'll start with this section here on the websites. They're fairly self-explanatory, but I did want to point out a couple of things here. In the the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction and the Encyclopedia of Fantasy, they're both hosted through the same site, but they operate slightly differently. The Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, you can search that obviously, but I found what might be more useful for you is to go under this Media tab here and load up the movies. Film A to Z. The information that you're going to get from this is going to be fairly basic and just give an introduction to the film. I'm not going to scroll too far down here. I'm just going to go as far as Alien, and you'll see that this is an article about the film Alien. It's pretty short. What I found really interesting is down here in this bottom paragraph where it talks about some of the possible sources that Ridley Scott used. You can see that there's an older movie, It, Terror from Beyond Space. There's A. von Voigt's Discord and Scarlet, which I'm going to show you in a minute how you can actually get that from Astounding Magazine. The other resource that's in here is the Encyclopedia of Fantasy, and I know you guys are focusing on science fiction, but if you do want to explore fantasy, the link drops you straight into this part here. If you end up going to media, it's just going to take you straight back to where we were a second ago. So what you're interested in, if you're looking for fantasy, is this page here with a list of all the topics. The other sites that I've got pulled up here is Geek's Guide to the Galaxy. Now this is really more a long list of panel topics that they have talked about in their podcast. My suggestion for this would be to Control F it and then search for whatever you're after here, Alien, Blade Runner, things like that. And you'll find the stuff that they talk about. They don't talk about everything in here, but if you do find one of their podcasts, definitely take a listen to that because it's really, really informative. Singularity Hub is not so much about science fiction as it is about science. Sometimes if you're dealing with a movie, you can take some of the themes and things that show up in those movies and search for them in here and see what's happening with those kinds of things. So if you're watching a zombie apocalypse movie and you want to relate that back to COVID-19, you can definitely do that through Singularity Hub here. Omniglot is an encyclopedia of different languages, and this is their constructed languages page. And one of the things that makes human beings very human is our use of language. This is something that other creatures don't really do the way we do. The fact that we make languages up for fiction is one step even beyond that. And here we have constructed languages that include things like Esperanto and that sort of stuff. But if you come down here, you can find stuff like Klingon. You can also find Tolkien's Elvish languages. And then they also include a whole thing about how to make up your own language. So if you want to pursue that direction, this is a resource you definitely want to take a look at. And the last site on the websites is Luminist Archives. And what this is an archive of old sci-fi and fantasy fiction periodicals. So Amazing Stories, things like that. And if you remember that article on Ridley Scott's Alien, there was mention of Astounding Magazine. And here it is here. There's a lot of these, so it's got its own separate page. And that particular story, that A.E. von Voigt story, is from December 1939, I believe. And here's December 1939. What this does is pulls up the actual magazine, and there's the cover with the big red demon being shot by guys with ray guns. And you'll see, there it is, Discord and Scarlet. you can go ahead and go in there and read that story if you want to and compare it to the film. I think that's pretty fascinating, and I have lost many hours perusing this particular website just reading old sci-fi. Back on our guide here, there's a few databases that I find would be really helpful. Gale has ebooks that'll be helpful when you're coming in from at home. You're going to have to sign in, and the usernames and passwords for these are all there on that Pathfinder. In here, you can browse by book if you want to. You can go under like arts, and then there's a couple of film and movie books that you can just click on and then go to the table of contents and find what's in them. Or you can search everything all at once. If I'm sticking with my Alien, I can search for Ridley Scott and find all the books in here that have Ridley Scott, and there's movies in American history, popular culture, things like that. And you'll find that just searching his name also comes up with the movies that he has done as well. Keep in mind that these articles are going to be fairly short, but they do make a good starting point in assessing a film, talking about its origins, talking about its connections to other fiction and other films. And also remember that this makes your life a little easier because you can click Cite and export this into Noodle Tools, which will then help you make your Works Cited page. Also within Gale, there is the literature criticism. I know this looks exactly like what I just showed you, but you can tell it's different because it says so right here. When you're searching in here, you probably want to be a little more specific. I could do Ridley Scott again. I'm going to shift over to Blade Runner because Alien will come up with a whole lot of stuff because the word alien is just so broadly used. I could be more specific if I want to. Even though this is a literature database, there still are a lot of entries about the film Blade Runner. And if you're using other films, you can find those in here as well. So like here's an article comparing Star Wars, Alien, and Blade Runner. And again, since this is a Gale database, I can export this using the Cite tool. This will come up in a rather clunky reader. You can download the whole thing using the download button up here at the top right. It makes it a little bit easier to read because you can open it up in Adobe Acrobat. The other two databases that are on the Pathfinder there are EBSCO, and again we got to log into this. I'm going to jump cut. And what you want to do here is just select all, and then do a second select all with this little tick box here, and continue with that. EBSCO, I think, is going to be the database that is super helpful to everybody because you can get very specific with your search. In this case, if I'm doing Blade Runner again, and then add terms like humanity and whatever else I wanted to put in there. And even focusing in like that, I still found 68 articles of relevance. This one is working between Philip K. Dick's novel and Ridley Scott's film of the novel, and comparison between the two. We also have other things relating the science fiction to actual construction of artificial intelligence, and the sky's the limit in here. So really, I think that if you use nothing else, EBSCO is going to be your best friend for this project. The one drawback of this is it does not export any of the citations the way Gale does, so you can still get your citation over here on the right where it says Cite. You'll just have to copy paste it. A couple of points in here that I do want to make. If you get this up and you're looking down here and you don't see the article, it's because it's over here on the left where it says PDF full text. Be aware that some of these articles do not have text. That's really annoying. The way to get around that is over here on the left side where the limiters are. Click this little box that says limit to full text. That'll get rid of the annoying things where all you can find are the citations, and that won't frustrate you quite as much. There are lots of different resources in here. That last thing I was looking at was a journal. You can also find books. Sometimes you will find an entire book about your topic, particularly if it's a very popular movie. The last resource I wanted to point out to you guys is JSTOR. Just as a point, log in before you search. I know this does not come up with the login box the way the others do. You actually have to click on login. And then over here on the left, you're going to do the username and password. And I'm going to jump cut that as well. And then you can do your same search in here. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did a second ago in EBSCO just to see what the differences are. Now this is coming up with quite a few more results. This is 804. And you'll notice that the articles in here are quite a bit different. Sometimes you will find the same thing in JSTOR that you find in EBSCO, but oftentimes you will find different stuff. So it is worth taking a look. My one beef with JSTOR, while it is an excellent resource, is that this particular reader that it has is extremely clunky, and it's a single page at a time kind of reader. But again, up here at the top, there's a blue button that says download PDF and accept the terms and conditions. It will then load it into Adobe Acrobat for you. And it's a lot easier just to scroll through that than it is to go a single page at a time. Also be aware that JSTOR does not export citations, so you will actually have to get your citation from over here where it says cite and copy paste that yourself. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to tell you about. If you have any questions at all, feel free to shoot me an email. I am on Google Meet most of the school day, so feel free to drop in during the day if you want to. I really like talking science fiction and fantasy, so if you just want to talk about it, that's awesome. I'd love to do that. So you guys have fun with this, and let me know how it's going, and I will talk to you later.